Welcome to the Durham Original Music and Alumni Podcast, a show which takes you around the most exciting original music of any kind on or around the peninsula. My name is George Bone, Alumni Relations Officer.
I'm Taylor Morse, DOMAN President.
I'm James, the Vice President and the Head of Showcase.
I'm Lizzie, the Secretary.
I'm Ishaan, the Treasurer.
And this is not a regular episode of the pod that we're doing today. Today is a specific Christmas episode of the pod. That's why 5 of the exec members are here today. And the sort of theme of this episode is going to be musical unpopular opinions that we're going to sort of debate amongst each other. We've all got some sort of drink in our hand, whether alcoholic or non-alcoholic. So as you're introducing your topic, I'll ask you to introduce your drink as well, so that people know what is fueling your rambles. So here's how we're going to work. Each exec member has provided me with an unpopular opinion about music generally, or Christmas music more specifically. After randomly being selected to argue their point, the exec member will have a minute to present their argument. The panel will then have 5 minutes to argue and talk around the point, and after those 5 minutes, each exec member will give that opinion a marking out of 5. 5 being, I agree with this wholeheartedly, and 1 being, I wish this nonsense never entered my eardrums. So, without further ado, what is a random number between 1 and 5? The answer is 4, so Ishaan, you go first.
Cool.
The sound of clear preparedness there.
Yeah, I was not okay, but I guess I've got 2 controversial things then. The first controversial thing is I'm drinking water today.
That's fair. We're an inclusive society.
And then second controversial opinion, musically related, is that ambient music is cannot be considered as background music all the time.
So, ambient music cannot be considered necessarily background music. You have 1 minute starting from now.
Okay, right, hear me out. Basically, I've been doing this lab report like the past 3 days or something, and I kind of wanted stuff to listen to. And so obviously, I chose ambient music. I just searched up like top 50 ambient albums and just like chonged through like as many as I could. And then as I was listening to it, I was thinking, wait, okay, this is actually really interesting, like musically interesting. And I kind of got distracted in my lab report and was more concentrating on the music rather than the lab report. I think that's pretty much it. That's my recent development when it comes to ambient music.
I mean, you've still got 15 seconds left, so
okay, cool.
use those.
Yeah. Also,
5,
moldy
4,
smoothie
3,
next to me. I should probably
2.
wash that up.
Well, I think it's a solid 5 for me, George.
So we've got
So
we've got 5 minutes now to talk about what the fuck just came out of that minute monologue. so obviously the argument is there that sort of like ambient music can clearly be used in sort of like a non-ambient scenario. Like, let's say, for example, like you're having a scene set in space or something like that, and where, let's say, like your ambient music is literally the music which sort of like contextualizes the environment that you're in. That is then the main music and also the supporting music, because space is a vacuum. So like that music has 2 functions. So I'm like... So
Are we in space in this?
No. Like, I'm just talking about an example of where ambient music can be used as like secondary music, like as in sort of like background music, but also primary music. Like, because there's no sound in space, can we establish this as an ensemble?
My question is, right, where's the line between ambient music and regular music? Is it just music without lyrics?
I think by the original definition, from what I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was like Brian Eno who might have coined the term ambient, meaning kind of as a kind of almost like a piece of furniture in the room. So I guess in his original definition, it may be considered as a kind of not background, but rather like a thing that you observe, and you look at your sofa or something and think like, that's a really good sofa.
It's really funny. Apparently, we're having a moment now of like ambient TV. So people have been calling Emily in Paris this new thing of like having just TV on the background, which you actually don't watch and you don't really care about, but it's ambient and it kind of
Well, then,
have it
to trendsetter.
there while they do other things.
Well, I think my problem is that lots of people use the term ambient in music to describe almost music that is like background music. And
well, by definition, it sounds like it is, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. By definition, I would say it
No,
sounds
I
like.
agree with Ish. I feel like the definition is stacked up against it, so it kind of makes it hard to.
Yeah, I think we've all got this like
about it.
association of ambient music being like
actually
soft pads and
it's
like.
really interesting to listen to. Like
Exactly.
Well, I'm gonna actually share something in the chat right now that it's like an infographic that I found a long time ago, but it's really interesting because it actually like kind of breaks down a bunch of different, like, I don't know if you've heard of like math rock, post metal, black yeah, thank you, James. But it's basically like, it's essentially just a sort of a cool like flow chart of like, I want something pretty and accessible, it's ambient, and then it's like, what if it had more guitars, what if it had more this?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've heard of the band Ishaan, Explosions in the Sky.
I haven't actually, but I'll give it a listen.
So it's completely instrumental, it's completely deeming the term ambient, but it's something that I think I've played it for everyone, people from like the weirdest like standpoint in like music interests and the like most basic or popular, and they're all like, wow, this is really nice and very like, oh, I could like study to this. And it's like, okay, but what if you just like didn't? What if you just literally listened to it for the sake of listening to it?
Well, there is the argument, and depending sort of like when you associate this like ambient music as well as where, because like it, especially like in the time of Handel and Mozart, where nowadays in contemporary audiences we would listen to it as if like it was gospel, like no interruptions at all. Whereas in the like early to late 17th century, people would be up in arms, like having conversations with each other, like throwing stuff onto the actual stage itself. Like it would basically like the theatre would be like a bar, and so then that music which we listen to like as a main source of entertainment now becomes the background noise. Would we then associate like the works of Handel and Mozart as like beginning ambient music then?
I never realised that. That's like a really
I guess it just
good factoid, George.
It just shows that what music's considered ambient is just dependent on context, and there's not really music that's actually innately ambient. It's just dependent on what kind of context you listen to it.
You know what, Ish? You sold me. I'm yours.
Well, we've got 15 seconds worth of conversation about this.
I don't transmit via words, I transmit via brainwaves.
I'm not convinced about that. I'm halfway.
I was only targeting Lizzie. And sorry guys.
Right,
I mean,
there we go. We've got to end that there. Five minutes is up, so I'll go down the Zoom line and ask for your number out of 5 and what you think of it. So first on the list is Lizzie. What would you give it out of 5?
5. Yeah.
5. You are completely bewitched by this opinion.
That it's because the opinion is just that it's good, isn't it? That it's not background music.
Yeah.
I'm sold. Definitely sold.
James, what would you give it?
I'll give it a 2, just because I'm not convinced that ambient music is actually as rigid a definition as it seems.
Taylor, what would you give it?
I'm gonna give it a 4. And my quick reasoning, my short story reasoning instead of the long story reasoning would be because I think that I am, as a person who listens to ambient music, I can't disagree really, but I'm not going to wholeheartedly agree because I like to reserve my 5s for the special people.
Can I change something before? Because I do agree that the definition lends itself to being background music, even if people can enjoy it.
Hold on, I'm just actually search out what the definition is.
So I would sort of go along the same line as James, and I would give it a 2. So we've got 4-2-4-2 locked in. That gives Ishaan, you've got a total of 12 out of 20. Honestly, over 50%. That's a solid score. Right. So, Lizzie, could you tell us what drink you're consuming tonight and what your unpopular opinion is?
So I am still on water, like Ishaan, because gotta do an essay. So stuff is happening.
I love how you have to say it's like I'm drinking water because of these reasons. I swear, I swear I'm an alcoholic like all you guys.
I swear I'm cool. Promise.
Right, and your unpopular opinion?
my unpopular opinion is that Grimes is actually great. She's just got a terrible name for her child.
What a specific gripe.
I knew I was holding out my 5 for a good reason because I.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, non-interrupted. Grimes is actually sick despite her child's name. Lizzie, you have 1 minute starting from now.
So I first encountered Grimes when I was about 13, and I was sitting in the kind of school study room, and everyone would be like listening to whatever music they wanted, and I had Genesis and Oblivion, and me and my friends were watching these music videos, and they are whack. They are so mental. She's got, she's wearing kind of metal armor, but then she's wielding swords, and she's in a desert. And her music, it's just really ethereal. And she kind of has this angelic voice, but then it's also all synthesized, and it's basically really beautiful. And she's created a persona for herself where people either react well to it and are really intrigued, or they're immediately put off. And a lot of my friends will be like, what the fuck are you watching? Like, who is this weird space alien? But actually, she's like Marmite. And then once you start listening to her music and you get past the persona.
And time. Well, right. Sorry to cut you off, but we have a minute each. So, does anyone have any comments on music videos are good and tailoring is pretty whack?
I can't lie, I know nothing about Grimes, so.
Wow.
Right, for those of if hopefully it comes up on the stream. For those of you who didn't see, Taylor just cracked her fingers like a right, let's ready to go sort of mood.
No, well, I think everything you said is right. Like the persona and the image she's giving off as someone who I guess has definitely cornered a weird niche is beautiful. I mean, just going on her Instagram page is like an experience. But I think the thing that I like most about her, is that she has been criticized for literally everything she's ever done. And she's like, and do I care?
Has she?
All of her songs.
I just really rate like her early stuff specifically.
Yeah. No, my first Grimes songs was Go with Blood Diamond, like featuring Blood Diamonds, and it is so beautiful, and her voice is so beautiful. And I just think like, yeah, okay, you can reduce her to someone who's trying to be edgy and like, different, but I mean, maybe she is just that way. I mean, this is the thing about like edginess today, especially, is like, are you really edgy or are you fake?
Well, I think that's like she kind of preempted that like attempt to try and brand herself as somebody really outside the box. Yeah. And now if you do look back on like her early albums, you think, oh, well, of course, like that's so normal for artists to go these crazy places. But at the time, it's just like no one was doing that. And also no one was doing like her crazy high angelic soprano voice and then putting mad synthesizers on it. Like no one was doing that. She's so cool. She's so cool.
And despite whatever, and like the other thing is that everyone thinks she's like not pretty and stuff because she tries to like augment her face and whatever. But excuse me, that's just Botox with less steps. Like people all across Botoxing the hell out of themselves, and it's like, oh well, she's face tuned herself to make it look like an alien or whatever, and it's like, but in real life, she's embraced her natural features, and you want to shit on her for that? Like, what's wrong with you?
See, I don't necessarily know her as an artist, but from just the way you've described it, she sounds very similar to someone like Pink or someone like that. Someone who seems sort of like outrageous and someone who seems sort of like a bit too over the top. But like when you sort of like delve into sort of like the messages she's getting behind her song and B sort of like the morals behind the way that she's doing it, she's just sort of like someone who's sort of setting trends rather than like necessarily sort of going against them or sort of grinding against them.
Quite different musically, but in terms of how they affect culture, there could be similarities.
Okay, but what about the argument of like setting trends for the sake of setting trends, just like doing something so whack that because just for the sake of doing like being that person,
being outrageous just for the sake of being outrageous?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't think she would. There's definitely an argument of people doing that now in a kind of. There was a moment where everyone was kind of naming their sexuality, perhaps just for the point of saying what there was a definite cultural moment where that was the case, but I do feel like grime just either ahead of that or was never really into.
She transcends it.
Yeah, she transcends it, man. Don't shit on Grimes. She's cool. The only thing I say is that her son's name is.
Does anyone actually know how to pronounce it? Because I've heard Kyle on Reddit, but I think that's just the Elon Musk fanboys.
I have no idea. I mean, like, if I ever meet him, or is it him or her? It's a him, right? Yeah, then I guess I'll tell you guys. Whatever happens.
Presumptuous that you'll be the first one meeting him out of our 5, but sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm actually meeting him tomorrow. I'm on a Zoom call with him tomorrow. Conference.
You and Brian Eno and Grimes' son.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If we're thinking even odds, it's a 20% chance. Those odds are quite high, to be fair.
He's got a 20% chance of meeting Grimes' son. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, 20. We've all got a 20% chance.
Yeah.
In tier 3 locations, we have all a 20% chance of meeting Grimes'. What is the son's name again? Was it? How do you pronounce it? How's it spelled?
Look it up.
It's meant to be Kyle. Someone legitimately said we think it's Kyle because they broke down every single symbol and they all have the phonetic sounds of k.
Okay, right. I'm
Like mispronounce his son's name.
Elon Musk.
right. Our 5 minutes are up. And so James, what is your rating on the opinion of Grimes is actually sick despite her child's name out of 5?
No idea who Grimes is, so I'm gonna have to give her a 3 and be neutral just because I can't form an opinion.
James, no.
Sorry, I got no idea.
So mean.
Ishaan, what do you think?
I'm gonna say 3 as well because I've listened to one of the songs and I do like it, but then I've listened to another one. I listened to 2 songs, and one I've liked, one I've not liked as much, and that's my only, I guess.
Taylor, what are your thoughts?
I'm gonna say 4, but hold
Okay.
on. But before the reason
He
being
was
is
holding out for you.
the reason being is because I like this argument and I think it's got undertones of feminism and good things, but I think that if I give away my 5 again, then I will regret it. So
Very fair.
Arguments just aren't worth it, mate.
Wow. Okay.
One chance.
this is how Lizzie really feels.
I'm going to go for a 3 as well, just due to the fact that while, like, I don't know, like, I would have gone for a 2, so be grateful. Like, while I don't know Grimes as an artist, I do respect the argument that sort of like trends need to be made regardless of whether they're different or not, so I'm giving it a 3, which boosts you to a very healthy 13.
13 out of 20.
Okay.
Ishaan, you've been put out by 1 mark. Right. So I've done another random generator, and it is 1, and that is my opinion. So from the looks of it, I am.
Out of context, that's so funny. It's 1, and it's my opinion.
He's been waiting all night.
It's the Veruca Salt approach. It's like, it's 1 and it's mine.
Yeah.
I feel like
Right.
George has really prepared his opinion as well, so I'm a bit
Yeah.
nervous.
Right. I mean, like, it can still be shit. Like, just however much I prepared it can still be shit. So, currently, I'm drinking a gin and tonic because it's what I got out of my Asda gin advent calendar. So it was the closest drink to me. And my unpopular opinion is no more iconic Christmas songs will ever be made again. That is my uncommon popular opinion, and I start now. So, the elements that have made Christmas songs have already been standardized as it is through radio, through TV shows. It's basically snow, bells, reindeer, Mariah Carey. You've got the basic building blocks of any Christmas songs, and the problem is, like, with the video game industry, TV industry, music industry, if something works, like, they want something that will make money rather than being outrageous, so they will go for the safe bet. They will make something exclusively with bells in it, with reindeer mentioned in it, with snow in it, with Happy Christmas mentioned in it somewhere or another. So, like, and through sort of mediums of sort of analysis of, like, contemporary musicology, like, starting in, like, the early, like, 2000s, we already know everything that needs to be known about Christmas songs. So when any Christmas period comes around, we know what we're looking for, and we can all realize that they're either one, all covers, or two, bullshit. And that rounds my minute.
That was definitely rehearsed.
Yeah.
Oh, you did that in the mirror.
Right, so we've got 5 minutes to talk about that opinion. Who wants to start?
Okay, I agree that the kind of like standard elements to a Christmas song have already been put in, but I don't know. I feel like Ariana Grande's got some bangers hidden away in a few Christmas albums. I don't know. I'm not convinced.
The fact that there has to be a few Christmas albums, multiple than few, to get at least one good Christmas song out there is a very bad ratio for Grande.
Yeah, true.
It was it the song I Love Sausage Rolls, which was a cover of I Love Rock and Roll?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
What about those kind of songs where people just take the piss out of old songs and then really push them to get them on the charts for Christmas?
Like, there is the argument that sort of like something that makes a good Christmas song doesn't necessarily need to have sort of Christmas themes behind it.
Yeah,
but like the
Die Hard
generic
being a
sort
good
of
Christmas movie.
Die Hard's not a Christmas movie. Fight me. Right. Let's put it this. Let's put it this way. Marley and Me is also set at Christmas time. Marley and Me is not a Christmas movie. It is a depressing movie.
Yeah, true.
Which is, why is everyone so afraid to address the elephant, the 800-pound elephant in the room, which is Christmas is not a fun, happy time most of the time. I find most of the time I'm not happy to have this year come around. I'm more excited for Halloween than Christmas.
That's sad.
American thing, you know.
Yeah.
Actually, British people spend more on Christmas. like Brits just love it.
I mean, I'll put it this way.
You've got Thanksgiving, you've got Halloween. You know, I feel like it's just England just goes mental at Christmas.
Yeah, but you guys go. I mean, the thing is that most people put their reservations at the door for Christmas in England. I found that a lot of people are like, we're going to go bury hatchets with our family members. And in America, they're like, we're going to go to Christmas and use our hatchets to kill our family members. Which is its own problem, but, you know, guns don't kill people. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Do not edit that out. They definitely do. But my point is, people in America don't think that. But
you know, we'll have that quote as like the end card thing that ends the episode. So like after the end card and like the playlist link and the subscribe button is just going to be you going, guns don't kill people. End of episode.
we haven't heard playlist controversial opinions.
Yeah,
we're gonna get the NRA to fund our freaking society.
Lizzie, what would you give it out of 5?
No.
Right, okay. Like, so you're not even commenting, it's just no. Right. James next. Okay, 1. Right. That's a point gained. That's 4 points lost, but it's a point gained. James, what do you think?
Surprisingly convinced, because whilst you've given examples of songs that have done well at Christmas, I don't think they count as Christmas songs. So I think I'll give you a 4.
A 4, very high. Right, Ishaan, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say 2, only because yes, there are Christmas songs that everyone listens to because they were made in a certain time, but I still think there's still scope for the future, and I'm hopeful.
Right, Taylor, what do you think?
So inspirational.
I'm gonna give you a 3 because I think that there is an element. There's a lot of merit in your argument, which is like I'm trying to think of like songs that I really like at Christmas, and I can't really imagine how they can top that. But I think there is a niche market which can be tapped, especially in the U.S. of A, which is America.
Which is America? What?
Which is like. Christmas is a great time of year, but like...
Yeah. So I come out with that with a pitiful 10. I'm currently in last at the moment.
You don't deserve that score, but it's your fault at the same time.
Yeah, it is my fault. Yeah, it's ironic that the music graduate who had the most time to think about this opinion got the lowest score. Right.
It just shows that we're uneducated, George. It says nothing about you.
Fair. So we've got 3 next. James, that's you next.
All right. I'm currently drinking dark fruits because I stole it off my housemate.
Legit. Brilliant.
And my controversial musical opinion is that grunge will never die.
Brilliant. So, grunge will never die. You have a minute starting from now.
The basic argument that underpins what I'm going to say is that a lot of the trends that we see today in our music were actually started by the grunge movement. So the main trend is the rejection of the mainstream music industry. So you see all these hip hop artists and all these contemporary artists rejecting record labels and rejecting established musical institutions. And I think a lot of that comes from the grime era, no, the grunge era, not the grime era. So when Kurt Cobain turned up to MTV and was just taking the piss and not actually rehearsing, and he just didn't care about the reputation that he had in the music industry. Also, people like Post Malone and all these contemporary artists like Death Grips who sort of pride their music on being out there and dissident and slightly off the norm. I think a lot of that started in the sort of the late punk era and the start of the grunge era. I think whilst grunge as a music genre.
And time.
Oh,
sorry about that, James. Yep. So we've got 5 minutes to debate whether it was grime or grunge.
I think grunge. I kept saying grime, and it's kind of embarrassing.
I like it, but then also I think that's you're taking this subgenre and then saying that it applies to everything, which I don't agree with. I do like the fact that you said rejection of the music industry norms and everything like that. But then obviously it's there's loads of different types of music, and there are some types of music where some people take it really seriously. And obviously there's the other spectrum. I'd say in the particular zone that we're in now, there's definitely more focus on fucking everyone else. I don't know if we're allowed to swear.
No, don't worry, I'll bleep it. It's fine. I've
Exactly,
got a bleep censorship. It's fine.
That kind of attitude. But obviously, there are still other types of music, and loads of them that don't have those ideals.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I just think the sort of the contemporary opinion that the music industry is something to be avoided started in the grunge era, and I think that opinion has been sort of amplified through recent music genres, but grunge doesn't get any of the credit for it.
So if your argument's about whether or not grunge should get the credit, then I'd say that that's just the fault of the people who have made these subgenres that just aren't paying attention to grunge and giving credit where credit is due. But I think that your argument should take the form of, I think, not that grunge will never die. I think grunge is going to make a very clear redefining reappearance in the form of something else, which will then have a legacy, but will also eventually die. Because I think pop music will die eventually. I think we're going to realize, or I think that the homogeneity of music in general is going to reach critical mass, and then we're all going to go, we'll listen to industrial noise or something, or silence like Philip Glass wanted us to. But the point is that I think that your argument it's got a lot of merit, because I think that you're right.
Did you say
there is
silence
a revolution coming.
Did you say silence like Philip Glass?
Yeah.
You mean John Cage?
Oh crap! Is it John? Yeah, it is John Cage.
It's also not called silence. It's called 4 minutes and 33.
No. I said the music that just did silence.
Oh, the music that just did silence. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh,
fair. Yeah, I do get the argument, but at the same time, in your sort of argument, you referenced artists that indeed have also broken into popular culture, when also your argument was basically like grunge doesn't break into popular culture.
Yeah, but the weird thing with grunge, right, is it also played on that sort of contradictory paradigm where it rejected mainstream culture, but it became mainstream culture. So the whole Kurt Cobain thing of him playing at MTV, where his whole sort of personal opinion was rejecting mainstream music culture, yeah, he had become the pinnacle of mainstream music culture. I think that's such an interesting paradox which exists throughout contemporary music that started in the grunge era.
Yeah, that's actually great. And also you have grunge fashion, which is still that actually had a revival a couple of years ago. This people wearing plaid and mesh and 90s fashion that all took it from the grunge scene.
Yeah.
But I don't know, if it comes back, as Taylor was saying, a couple of years down the line, won't it be something different? Won't it be its own new form? It won't have been grunge necessarily. It will be a kind of, would be referring to it by whatever name it chooses to call
I think
itself,
I think
than grunge.
the way I presented my argument was supposed to be there's like the famous caption that grunge is dead, which came about when Kurt Cobain died. I think what I'm trying to say is that grunge actually has lived on in ways that we just don't appreciate. And when I say grunge is will never die, what I mean is that the features that make grunge so unique and so interesting are still current in contemporary music.
So it's more of a matter of like, it's not become its genre itself, but it's sort of gone through a transformational osmosis into what mainstream is at the moment.
Yeah, and I'd say that's still a form of life. Well, yeah.
Yeah, well, that ends it there. Right, so going from left to right, Lizzie, what would you give it?
4.
That's a confident score right off the bat.
Yeah, no, I just think, yeah, I agree. The only thing is maybe would it come back in another form, but I guess that's kind of what you covered anyway. Yeah, big agree.
Thank you.
Ishaan, what do you think?
You're not allowed to give half numbers, are you? So you have to.
I mean, you can give a half number, sure.
I want to give it 3.5.
Right, okay. And your reasoning?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with the thing that I think you were trying to say, but then I also disagree with the maybe the form of the actual statement itself, and then obviously there's other kinds of music that grunge maybe might not filter into, but in the particular case of maybe standard indie rock music right now, or just kind of music in general, it fits pretty well.
Taylor, what do you think?
I'm actually I'm pretty swayed by this because I think the wording of the argument may have kind of like lost its soul with some people, but I think that in essence you're right. Like I have always sort of thought ever since, especially like everything that's been going on in terms of like racial relations around the world, that there is sort of like a revolution brewing in some form. We are getting a little bit afraid of the tech monopolies, and we are sort of looking at things slightly differently, but that being said, isn't that the essence of what the genre tried to capture? Like the rejection of the mainstream, direction of the norm. So in that case, I'm gonna have to give it a 5.
Whoa! Top marks. So while I was going to give it a 4, I realised that we could give half numbers, so I'm going to give it a 3.5 and measure it out to a whole number. Just due to the fact that sort of while I'm swayed more than a neutral point of view, there's still the argument in my mind that sort of like, oh, it's just become what it wanted not to be, and it's gone through like a Darth Vader sort of transformation, like it became the very thing that it chose to destroy. So 4 plus 5 plus 7, if you include both 3.5s, that is a strong 16. That's a strong 16. Right, Taylor, you have got to match or beat James's score of 16 with your very strong opinion. So please tell us, A, what you're drinking, and B, what your opinion is.
The game is that music is getting better instead of getting worse. And the drink to accompany it is a very stiff G&T in a very weird cup that I found in my house of yesteryear. But anyway, I will polish it off now for the good people of this podcast.
We will just remind audience members that Taylor's opinion beforehand was, what was your opinion beforehand before you decided to change it at the 9th hour?
No, that does not matter now.
Was it Michael Bublé is cancelled, specifically at Christmas time? How dare you, you heathen?
I'd like to extend the podcast for more than over an hour. I will be happy to enlighten you on both accounts.
I wouldn't, because I'm scared. Right, music is actually getting better over time. You have a minute starting from now.
So I'd like to open this up by saying that music generally is a subjective sort of enterprise, but I would consider that the pursuit of music in all of its forms, and I think that as a DOMAN society we would agree, is that we are trying to find the most unifying sound, and we have to find a sound that is topping that of all of the sounds prior to it, or factoring in all of the sounds prior to it to make it the most possible unification of all. But the thing is that if everyone's saying like pop music has become very homogenized, like every 8 years, all music sort of raises itself by 1 decibel in sound, so it's actually getting louder. And Scientific American says that that's actually kind of a bad thing because it's becoming to the point where music as a whole is becoming more homogenized in that everything sounds the same. We're using the same 4 chords. We're using the same sounds generally. But thank you, James, for making your argument that we're kind of rejecting the music industry, which we are, because you're right. More people in the last 5 years.
Time.
What? No, I was so into that.
Yeah, keep going. I was into that.
Going, keep.
Right. Okay. Right. Hold on. We're gonna include the rest of that argument in the 5 minutes start from now. Go.
Okay. Well, because in the last 5 years, it's been actually statistically proven through Yale sort of like reviews and stuff like that in terms of like music and theses that people have actually been more interested in traveling outside their genres they listen to at home as children or genres they learned like at university. So like now, basically, the time we're living in right now, we're more likely to like listen to new things, which is pretty true. But the problem that I'm finding is that people are always saying music's getting worse. Music's getting worse because everyone's listening to the same things and all the chords are the same chords and everyone's just basically playing out themselves over and over again. But there are so many genres that have been invented in the last 10 years, more than the last 30 years. I think Ishaan can actually agree with me on this because there are actually so many different subgenres that have existed and have been beginning to fork itself down and down and down that it's actually impossible for us to say that pop music is completely dominating everything. I don't know anyone that exclusively listens to pop music. Pop music is only considered popular because actually it's whatever the Billboard charts deem to be relevant. And I actually found out that Taylor Swift's father owned Swift Trucking in the United States. So before she became popular, what her father did was basically buy the first 1 million albums of her first ever album, Fearless. So she wasn't rated by the people. She was rated by her father's endless wealth. So how is that fair?
What the fuck? Is that genuinely serious?
Genuinely true.
What the fuck? Why do
bought her first 1 million albums? Yeah.
What the fuck? She made herself go gold. This is bullshit.
And it happens way more often than you think. So the truth is, are we actually listening to popular music, or are we being told that this is popular?
Well, I completely agree because I think with the internet, I know nobody who I know nobody who actually really knows what's in the top 40. I have no idea. Like no one, and I actually think the internet's been this like amazing equalizer in that I agree. I don't think popular music, in the sense that it's popular rather than just like pop, I don't think that really exists anymore.
Yeah.
You only listen to it when you're like 5 on Capital FM. I think now, like YouTube has just become this amazing resource. I don't think anyone actually sees pop music.
My kind of like my final statement is like music is it can only get better. There is no concept of it getting worse because it's never going to end.
Do you think the main counter argument is that music can't get better or worse? Music's just music.
I mean, it is and it isn't, right? This is a wonderful nihilistic and almost apathetic kind of way of looking at it, which is like the music, if there is a pursuit of music, does it even exist? I mean, music is basically noise that we called cool.
Is this even a podcast?
No.
the same answer.
Oh, my cup is floating. It's the Twilight Zone. No.
Right, so we have officially ended that segment. Lizzie, what would you give it out of 5?
Solid 5. Very impressive, my lady.
A solid 5. Right, James, what would you give it?
I'll give it a 4.
A 4.
I'm still tempted by the whole music can't get better or worse type position.
Very fair. Ishaan, what would you give it?
4. Similar reasoning.
So, if I give it a 4, Taylor wins. If I give it a 3, she's drawn with James. My opinion is genuinely that it deserves a 5. I was like, it had very good arguments. I was very happy with it. So that brings your total to an impressive 18 out of 20. Which means that Taylor, with her very optimistic and inspirational DOMAN-esque approach, has won the competition, whereas the music graduate with the most time on his hands has actually lost, and was given the only
COVID right now.
Yeah. We'll also note to the audience that Taylor's been locked up for the last few days with all of her house tested positive for coronavirus. So she's come up with this opinion while suffering from a very contemporary disease. And I was the only one to get a 1 out of 5. Fuck you all.
Fuck you all.
Right. Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Merry
it's been-
Christmas, Happy Hanukkah,
Christmas.
Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Hope you have a great New Year. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.